Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. This is Amity Ravenclaw Elf here, and I know what you're thinking. I got a tripod. Both of my hands are in frame. I don't know why my AirPods are on. Both of my hands are in frame right now. I'm talking into the camera with both my hands in frame instead of clearly holding the camera in front of my face in selfie mode. Shout out to my dad for buying me both the tripod and the light fixture into which I'm now staring. And shout out to my mom. She didn't buy the tripod or the light, but she's a good person, so she gets a shout out. Today, I'm going to be talking about Community, which is a show written mostly by Dan Harmon. It started airing in 2009.
Yeah. What? It's 2009.
And ended I don't know what year, and it's impossible to look it up. There's no way to research it. It is information lost to time. It's a good show. I enjoy it. It brings me joy when I view it. I laugh. I cry. Actually, have I cried watching Community? Who's to say? It's impossible to tell. But it's a flawed show. Like all of us, we're all flawed shows, in a way. My necklace is inside my shirt and I don't like it. There we go. It's free. She's free. Okay. One of the main flaws of Community I always notice when I'm viewing it, Shirley, the character, gets a peculiar treatment by both the show, the characters, and the fandom. I said both as though there were going to be two things in that list, but there were three. She gets treated peculiarly by the show, the characters, and the fandom.
I can explain. Let me explain.
Fortunately, I stumbled across, well, not stumbled across, I was like rewatching the show, which I do often, but I came by some information that helps me to present a microcosm of that odd treatment that Shirley gets. So this is going to become about race and gender and all kinds of stuff because, you know, Shirley is the only main character who is a black woman who is overweight and like not 20, meant to be like 40-ish. She gets treated peculiarly, and we're gonna look at that. Maybe in a bullet-pointed fashion. That'd be cool if I did bullet points. First of all, I'm definitely not saying this to blame Yvette Nicole Brown. A lot of times when people point out racial insensitivity in media, like the first thing we want to say is, oh, there should have been more black people involved in the creating process, which is true. We definitely need more diversity in those processes. But what I don't want to do is imply that like it was her responsibility to fix it. Like I don't want to put all that weight on her. It's definitely not her fault. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Dan Harmon did this insidiously. Like, I'm not saying, ahaha, Dan Harmon, I've caught you in your treachery. In fact, maybe, you know what? Now I am saying that. Dan Harmon, I've caught you in your treachery. And it'll be pistols at dawn. Actually, no, swords. I like swords better. Although I will say I think that the Community fandom perhaps worships Dan Harmon too much to the point that it becomes burdensome to try to make a statement about Community without having someone go, well, actually, Dan Harmon said. The finale episode of season 5, which was called Basic Sandwich, there was a point at which Jeff uses his emotions to open a door that is powered by emotion, and a lot of people interpret it as him using his emotions for his friends, but apparently in some recording, Dan Harmon at some point said, oh no, it was actually his emotions for Annie. That's not his voice. And every comment section now, whenever someone says his feelings for his friends helped him unlock the door, someone replies saying, actually it was his feelings for Annie, as Dan Harmon said in that one recording. And it's like, okay, I'm not 100% saying death of the author, but let people have their interpretations without jamming your Jeff-Annie ship down our throats. And the Jeff-Annie ship is going to be part of this video too.
We love Jeff. No, we don't. We're just in love with the idea of being loved. And if we can teach a guy like Jeff to do it, we'll never be unloved.
Ultimately, the thesis of this video is going to be Community isn't entirely fair to Shirley, and Community fans aren't entirely fair to Shirley, and here's why. Obviously, I'm not going to make the fact that she wasn't in season 6 a point in this because I know the reason that she wasn't in season 6 and it was like an actor thing and it couldn't be helped. The main source that I'm using to discover the way that Community fans treat Shirley is gonna be TV Tropes. So like if you're a fan of Shirley who's like, what? I would never mistreat the character. The source I'm using is TV Tropes, which is a website that you can go to as a resource. It's an amalgamation of information about various shows created presumably by fans. What you do is you go onto the website, you look up your show or your trope or your book or your movie or your musical, whatever you want to look up on TV Tropes. If it's popular, it's probably up there, and it'll show you a breakdown of all of the different tropes that the show uses. So it'll say like, ahaha, this was an example of breaking the fourth wall, or this was an example of lampshade hanging. That's what TV Tropes is. If you haven't gone on that website, definitely go on. It's a lot of fun. You can waste hours on TV Tropes, and TV Tropes ruins your vocabulary. When I go onto TV Tropes, a lot of times I will see if there is an episode by episode recap for a show that I'm watching. A lot of shows don't have episode-to-episode recaps because a lot of fans of shows don't feel like doing that, but for Community, they do. For Community, there is an episode-to-episode recap because every single episode of Community has a lot of tropes in it, and it has a lot of references in it, so people on TV Tropes will be like, here are all the references that are made in this episode. It references Star Wars, it references Indiana Jones, etc. TV Tropes is where you can really see a lot of Shirley hate, so it could be that just one fan went on there and just, like, skewed everything to be anti-Shirley, but it's the resource I have, so we're gonna look at it, because even if it's one person, you can still use it to see the way that racism manifests in the fandom. So what we're gonna be doing with the TV Tropes recaps is that we're gonna be comparing and contrasting two different episodes. There is an episode in season 1 and an episode in season 5. The episode from season 1 is Contemporary American Poultry. This is an episode in which Abed is convinced by Jeff to do a crime thing, and he goes overboard. The episode from season 5 is VCR Maintenance and Educational Publishing. In this episode, Shirley is convinced by Jeff and Hickey to do a crime thing, and she goes overboard. Sounds pretty similar, does it not? It sounds as though that's roughly the same situation. A little bit more detail. In Contemporary American Poultry, what happens is the gang wants chicken fingers, but there isn't enough in the cafeteria. They get the current chicken finger cook fired, they put Abed in his place, and they end up accidentally running a criminal empire around chicken fingers. And Abed is the key, and Jeff is like, hey, we gotta shut it all down, and Abed's like, no, I don't want to shut it down. In fact, I want to go overboard, and he goes overboard. And in the episode from season 5, VCR Maintenance and Educational Publishing, Shirley and Jeff and Hickey are all cleaning out a room, and in that room there's a vent. In the vent there is many textbooks, and they're like, whoa, these must be stolen. And Shirley's like, man, we should report this. And Jeff and Hickey are like, no, let's not report this. In fact, let's sell them and get money for us, the three of us, instead of the school. We're basically also stealing the textbooks. And Shirley is like, what? No, we can't do that. And then they kind of manipulate her religion and convince her using that, saying like, hey, maybe God wants you to steal these textbooks and sell them. And then she's like, okay, so we're stealing textbooks, let's do this. And then she kind of goes overboard. In the episode Contemporary American Poultry, when Abed goes overboard, Jeff goes to the group and says, hey, Abed's going overboard, we should shut him down. And the group is like, wow, I guess you're jealous of Abed because he's the leader now? And Jeff is like, what? No, I'm not. And then they ditch Jeff, but then Abed turns on them when they're ungrateful for all he's done for them. The gang all goes to Jeff after Abed's turned on them. Jeff, he turned on us, we gotta shut him down. And he's like, yeah, obviously, let's do this. And then they shut him down, and Abed's like, I tried to relate to people, but I failed. I've never been able to relate to people. I'm just different. This is a good time to mention that Abed, the character, has always been heavily coded as being on the spectrum. In the first season, they would periodically joke that he has Asperger's, and in season 3, there's a song where he has the lyric,
Got a sore of Christmas. On the spectrum, none of your business.
On the spectrum, none of your business. So, like, it's understood that he's coded to be on the spectrum. So that basically informs this conflict, is that, like, he was using the chicken finger criminal empire to relate to people, and then he and Jeff have a 16 candles moment where they sit on a table and eat chicken fingers, and it's all over. We had an emotional moment with Abed, and it's over, and we understand each other a little bit better. In the episode VCR Maintenance and Educational Publishing, as they continue trying to flip these textbooks, people keep on finding out about it. They tell Britta about the textbooks because they need her to give them a person to flip them to. Chang finds out about them accidentally, and Shirley's just like, we can't let him go. Jeff and Hickey willingly tie up Chang. So at this point, this isn't Shirley having gone too far, this is everyone going too far. So Jeff and Hickey willingly tie up Chang. Later on, Jeff starts having reservations, so Hickey willingly ties up Jeff. So now Jeff is out of it, but still Hickey and Shirley are together in this. Then Jeff and Chang trick Shirley and Hickey into tying up Britta, and then Shirley somehow subdues and ties up Hickey. So it ends up being that all of the others are tied up, and Shirley is the one who makes the deal, but surprise, the textbooks are misprints, so they don't get almost any money out of them, which seems like not how it works, because, like, not having page numbers suddenly devalues all of this information, but whatever. So she gets nothing, and, like, she goes back and unties them. The next time we see them, it's the next day, and they're all still mad at her, which is like, you guys were in it until very late in the game. You don't get to pull a moral high ground on us, my guy. And I should point out that the things that Shirley does begin and end at having them tied up in a room for, like, maybe a couple hours. But what Abed does to get back at the group in the chicken episode, like, he puts gum in Annie's hair, he releases Troy's pet monkey, who, granted, he had gotten him the pet monkey, but still he loses Troy's pet on purpose. Oh wait, not Annie's hair, he puts gum in Britta's hair. Can you imagine if Shirley had put gum in someone's hair, what the fans would say about her? Speaking of what fans would say about her, we're gonna look at the TV tropes for these two episodes. These two similar but different episodes. Going through the tropes page, I'm looking for just the relevant tropes, so I'm not gonna go through the whole tropes page. Start with Shirley, we see the hypocrite trope is used. They say, once again, the divide between Shirley's religious beliefs and her fundamental personality is explored. She initially objects to Jeff and Hickey's plan on moral and religious grounds, but after they convince her to sell them, she very quickly becomes the greediest and most ruthless of all of them. Okay, first of all, I'm not sure that that's like a show of hypocrisy. Like, I'm not sure that's what really hypocrisy means, is that you once had one opinion and now have a different opinion. That's not what hypocrisy is. But more to the point, the greediest and most ruthless, she very quickly becomes the greediest and most ruthless of all of them. Maybe the most ruthless because she's the last one standing, but not the greediest necessarily. They were in it for the money too. They started it for the money. There's no way of justifying saying that she was the greediest. All she had to do was say, he can't leave about Chang, and Jeff and Hickey jumped at tying him to a chair. That's not, like, calling her even the most ruthless isn't necessarily fair. Just because Jeff decided after a couple minutes, like, oh, actually, maybe we shouldn't do this, like, doesn't mean he gets off with a warning. He still was part of it. He tied Chang to a chair. Hickey tied up Chang and Jeff, and presumably Britta, but I don't exactly remember. Next up, on the relevant tropes here, we've got the my god, what have I done trope. Shirley is clearly left looking rather ashamed of herself and what she's done when it's revealed that the textbooks are worthless. Unfortunately for her, by that point it's equally clear that no one else is particularly inclined to be forgiving towards her. That's true. That's not necessarily someone writing something anti-Shirley. That's just accurate. None of the characters had any sympathy for her. Again, remember how they treated Abed, and I know that a part of that is that, like, the characters infantilize Abed a little bit because of him being on the spectrum, which is a different problem. We shouldn't still be infantilizing people who are on the spectrum. But the lack of forgivingness towards Shirley is still its own thing. Okay, we got a two-header now. We have the never my fault trope. Throughout the episode, Shirley never takes responsibility for her actions and asserts that it's Jeff and Hickey's fault for dragging her into this and that she didn't want this. That is objectively the case. That is literally what we see happen in the episode. It's not a never my fault thing. It's just what happened. She is correctly stating, I didn't want to do this. You dragged me into this. That is what happened. Sure, she should still take personal accountability for her actions, and I would advocate for her doing that, obviously, but calling it the never my fault trope seems a bit judgmental, considering, again, she wasn't the one who wanted initially to steal the textbooks. And then we have the no honor among thieves trope. All of the participants of the textbook subplot, but Shirley in particular, takes to this mindset, which backfires on her when the textbooks turn out to be worthless, leaving her humiliated and facing a large group of her friends who are clearly not particularly happy with her after being betrayed and tied up. That one is a tippy-top more judgmental than the, my god, what have I done one. Oh, this trope, okay. First of all, I usually enjoy seeing this trope in, like, psychological thrillers just because it's like, oh, what kind of a gaslighting, twisted logic is this? But here it's definitely not entirely fair. It's the why did you make me hit you trope. Shirley pulls this on the others after she overpowers them and goes to sell the textbooks all by herself. It's played with in that while she does have a valid point, Shirley was initially reluctant to have anything to do with the textbooks and had to be persuaded by Jeff and Hickey, which she points out. When she did eventually join in, she clearly let her greed control her and took things way further than everyone else was willing to go and refused to take responsibility for her own actions and decisions. I don't think I have to point out that there's judgmental language being used here. I think you guys get the gist. You understand that they're trying to paint Shirley in a certain way. Oop, another one that I missed going back. Continuity nod. Shirley once again shows a disturbing knack for adapting to a criminal mindset in a hurry. Okay, hold on. Let me think back and see what they're referring to as, like, far as continuity is concerned. The first thing I think of as far as Shirley showing a disturbing knack for anything was the time when she played a cop.
He's right. You're not cops.
I'd say our hands are tied, but we basically have no hands.
I can both see and hear you.
The Law and Order parody, she played the police chief, and she did a really good job of that because she had the stone cold disposition, but that's not showing a disturbing knack for criminal things, which, by the way, is a very racially charged way of putting it. In the chicken episode, she didn't have any position of, like, influence in the chicken empire. In fact, like, it specifically says that the reason she was the one putting the chicken in the boxes and stuff like that was because she thought that if she stole, she would go to HE double hockey sticks, and that was a whole thing. I'm sure at some point I'm gonna remember what they're referring to, but all I can think of is evidence to the contrary.
Oh my lord!
Shirley, these things happen in video games. You need to survive and win.
Hello, I'm the blacksmith's wife.
Oh, crap.
Guard the door.
Shirley!
No witnesses! I'll check upstairs for any more family. And don't give me that look. These are your loose ends. I'll just tie them up.
Now let's look at the TV Tropes page for the Abed chicken episode, and I'm certain that it's going to be equally judgmental of Abed because they don't have a racial bias against black women, and they don't have a problem of infantilizing people on the spectrum. Okay, off to a rocky start here because the first trope we see, beware the nice ones, which didn't appear in the Shirley episode, funny enough, even though it seems like Beware the Nice Ones should have been a trope for Shirley. Didn't make it on there. That's weird. Beware the Nice Ones. Don't take Godfather Abed for granted. He'll destroy your new backpack, release your monkey, put gum in your hair, disconnect the AV system, and feed the guy you like chicken fingers. Okay, so different tone here. Instead of saying like, wow, Abed got greedy, he got dark, he was corrupt, and he showed a disturbing knack for criminal enterprise. Instead of all of that, they're saying, wow, don't get on Abed's bad side, because Abed's cool. You know, I'm not the only one who's seeing this, right? This trope, I can't say that word, but it's that word. It feels good to be a gangster. Another trope that didn't appear in the textbook episode is one saying that like they were having fun and painting it in a really positive and cute way. Like, oh, it's so cute. He's having a good time. Look at him having fun. Okay, another trope that doesn't appear in the textbook episode but seems very apt for the textbook episode is gone horribly right. Jeff's plan, get Starburns fired, get Abed hired as fry cook, get assured supply of chicken fingers, actually goes off flawlessly. However, Abed's genre-savvy application of mafia movie tropes ends up making the plan increasingly complicated and spirals out of Jeff's control anyway. Hey, that's exactly what happened in the textbook episode, is that his plan went right, but the person spiraled out of control anyway. But they sure didn't put it that way, did they? In the green-eyed monster trope, Jeff is gradually unseated as group leader by Abed. He is not happy about this. Okay, so this one isn't necessarily apt for the textbook episode, so I'm not saying that they should have used that trope in the textbook episode. What I am saying is that they definitely weren't phrasing it like Jeff was the one in the wrong for getting mad at Shirley in the textbook episode. Rather, they were phrasing it as Shirley being the one in the wrong for taking charge. Okay, here's our last couple of tropes here. Informed wrongness, and I'm gonna have to give you a little context for this one. Early on in the chicken finger episode, Abed kind of hurt Shirley's feelings by telling her that this guy has no interest in her, really bluntly. Like, he just tells her in straightforward language, like, he doesn't know who you are, and like, you look invisible to him and stuff like that. He doesn't mean to hurt her feelings, but he still says it in like a really blunt way that hurts her feelings. The group kind of tells him, hey, no, you should be more gentle about these kinds of things. Here we have the informed wrongness trope, which basically just means, oh, we're supposed to believe this person's wrong when really they're not. Apparently, the group thinks that telling Shirley sexy dreadlocks has an interest in her, when in reality he had no idea who she was the right thing to do. While Abed may have pointed out the truth a bit too bluntly, it still seems better than falsely leading Shirley on. Yeah, maybe, that's a fair argument, but can we think about how they would have put it if Shirley had been the one bluntly saying that a guy wasn't into one of the white girls? How that would have been painted? It would have been painted as her being a bad person. I don't like the vibes. Basically, I don't like the vibes around it. And the last trope to look at for the chicken fingers episode is tearjerker. Tearjerker sets in once you realize that everything Abed has done in the episode is because he's desperate to try and connect with people for once. Which is true, but again, can you imagine if Shirley put gum in Annie's hair and then said, I only did it because I don't feel like you guys hang out with me very much, which she says often. The character of Shirley often says that the girls hang out with each other and they don't hang out with her. The other people in the group often ignore her. She says that often. What she doesn't do is put gum in anyone's hair. I think I've built a solid case around the whole these two episodes are treated differently by the fan base thing, insofar as the fan base can be gleaned from TV Tropes, the page. The fact that TV Tropes is edited by fans and not just written by fans, I think supports my argument. It would be one thing if just like someone typed that in there and like it couldn't be changed, but any fan could have gone in there and made edits, so we can only assume that there's consensus among the fans that use TV Tropes at least. That was just our first bullet point, was that those two episodes are treated differently. Our next bullet point is shipping. This is gonna be probably a quick one. Shirley starts off the series as a middle-aged divorcee with 3 kids? 2 kids. She has 2 kids at the start of the series. She gets the 3rd one in season 2. She divorced her husband because he cheated on her on their anniversary, and she's just going to community college for a fresh start to start a business. She also often shows interest in romantic relationships. Like, she also wants to connect with people. The thing is, the show has a way of like making her look as if she's pathetic for that. Whenever the group starts talking about how they have chemistry with each other, like Jeff will make a grand speech like, hey, we're all able to fall in love with each other because we're not literally biologically related, which is a weird thing to point out, but that's what they said.
We're not a family. Maybe it's more complicated because unlike a real family, there's nothing to stop any one of us from looking at any of the others as a sexual prospect.
And Shirley would without fail chime in like, hey, maybe I could be in a relationship with one of you guys.
You did get weirdly specific when you were describing Annie's body.
More specific than the stuff you told me about Britta?
Does anyone get specific about me?
Check your email.
It's called chemistry. I have it with everybody.
Everybody? I haven't felt any of that chemistry coming my way. I don't know if it's because you're racist or because I intimidate you sexually, but I know it's one of those two.
And then it would kind of be treated as a, wow, Shirley, you think you're a viable romantic option for Jeff or Troy or Abed? That's dumb of you, you fool. Don't you know that you're an overweight black woman and your place is to be the jokey jokes? Anytime that she has one-on-one time with one of the guys, it's treated as either a motherly thing or a just like bros thing. Like they're just being friends, they're just hanging out, playing foosball together. There's never even a drop of them saying, hey, maybe them, maybe. Which is crazy because Jeff has chemistry with Britta and Annie. Annie is 19 at the start of the show, and Jeff is like 30-something. That's not, sure, it's legal, but it's not acceptable when we see this like grown man who has had and lost a job as a lawyer is like not only pursuing romantically this teenage girl, but also going about it in a really creepy way. He's not actively creepy, but he says little things. In the Model UN episode, he says, Annie, stop it. You're acting like a little schoolgirl and not in a hot way. And then he himself lampshades that that's creepy by saying, that may have made me sound creepy, but here's the thing, and then he walks away. The show knows that it's weird. The show is aware that the age gap is weird, and Shirley often emphasizes in casual conversation whenever her age comes up, she says, I'm around Jeff's age. Usually not in a romantic sense though. Usually she's just saying like, I'm not that old because I'm around Jeff's age, which is shown to be correct in the foosball episode because when she was a kid at a youth center, Jeff was also a kid in that youth center, and it seems like maybe there was a 3-year divide between them, like maybe a 5-year divide. It's definitely not a large one. Definitely not so large that she's treated like his mom half the time. She has significant chemistry with Jeff. There's the episode where they're roasting people together, the foosball episode that I keep mentioning. Of course, there's the episode that preceded Black Mirror's Nosedive, the episode called App Development and Condiments. I'm kind of streamlining the synopsis of the episodes, but basically Jeff is competing with her to become popular, to prove that her way of being popular is manipulative or something, but his way of being popular is also manipulative, and then at the end of the episode they realize that they both have a problem with being control freaks. All of that presented in a completely non-romantic and untense way. Britta and Annie are the two characters, or the two main characters who Jeff has chemistry with. Britta we can forgive because of the fact that Britta is supposed to be roughly Jeff's age. In the cooperative calligraphy episode, Shirley comments that she believes that she and Britta are about the same age, and then Britta makes a little jab about it, like, yeah, unless time is linear. But Annie is understood to be much younger than Jeff, so it's weird that she's the primary ship for him, to the point that though Britta was the main person that was shipped with Jeff at the beginning of the show, she was downgraded to kind of underdog status by the end. And the reason I'm mentioning Jeff so much instead of Troy and Abed is because they refused to show Shirley as anything other than a mother figure to those two. If they had just refused to hint that Jeff and Shirley might be a ship, then that'd be less than ideal, but it'd be okay. But the fact that they make constant jokes about it, or not constant, but the fact that they often make jokes about it where it's clear that Shirley would be open to a relationship, but like she's treated as like pathetic for thinking that she could be in a relationship with one of them, is really gross. In season 2, they just kind of boredly place her back with her ex-husband and say, oh, he's changed, and that's pretty much it. She's married again. They still give her a business. They let her have her sandwich business that she wanted to open, but it's still just like, wow, you gave her one season where you let her sow her wild oats, and then you were like, okay, we don't know what to do with you, so back to marriage you go. We have no intention of giving you any romantic focus, and the fact that we refuse to do that is becoming ostentatious, so we're just gonna put you in a relationship so we never have to worry about it again. A relationship with the man who cheated on you with a stripper on your anniversary. The fact that it's with a stripper isn't the problem, by the way. Stripping is a valid profession, I'll never say otherwise. In season 1, as I was mentioning, there's the sexy dreadlocks guy who she had a crush on, but they went out of their way to say that he wasn't into her and that he was only after her for her chicken fingers, and as soon as Abed had the chicken fingers, he was following after Abed. That was an unnecessary thing to mention, by the way, that's like, hey, you know how this middle-aged divorcee is looking for love? She can't have it, in case you're curious. We're not gonna fix that in any way except for like slamming her back with the guy who cheated on her. And there was the thing with Chang where she and Chang did the sex at Halloween. They both forgot about it because there was also a zombie apocalypse that they were drugged to forget about. Ultimately, what happened was she had sex with somebody because they were in a dangerous situation and they were both stressed and trapped in a bathroom. And then she forgot about it immediately until she became pregnant and had to go, oh man, is it with Chang or is it with my ex-husband, who she remarried because she was pregnant? The reason she found out that she had even had sex with Chang is because while it was happening, Chang apparently called Troy and left a message in which he described the whole thing. Lots of problems with that, right? Neither she nor Chang knew about it, and then Troy just held on to that information for several episodes, even when she was pregnant and it became pertinent for her to know that she had sex with Chang around that time. He still didn't tell her. He tried to trick her husband into telling him whether they had also had sex. I love Troy, by the way. This isn't me saying Troy is bad, because Troy is wonderful.
Oh, we all got chloroformed.
Long story short, the fact that she's never shipped with Jeff and it's treated as a joke is gross, and the fact that they slammed her with Chang for a little while shows how much they disrespect both characters, and the fact that they put her back with her ex-husband is lame. As far as the character herself, obviously she's flanderized into just being like the religious and cloying person. I legitimately thought about like going through all of the episodes and writing down how many of them gave her a major plot, but I didn't want to do that. Ultimately, I guess the reason I've made this video is because I want us to think more about the way we treat certain characters, and in this case, that character is Shirley. Like, where is the Shirley Jeff fanfiction? Where is it? There was even an episode in season 4, I know season 4, but there was an episode in season 4, the puppet episode, where Jeff was saying, oh man, I found the perfect girl, but then I met her kid and I chickened out because I don't want to raise a kid, and now I'm like my dad because I left a kid behind. Not his kid, but still. Wouldn't that have been cooler if that was Shirley? Shirley has kids. What if we had that with Shirley, where he just goes, man, I like Shirley a lot, but she has kids and now I have to directly confront my problem with like fatherhood and stuff. Boy, that seems like it would have been more poignant than not even name dropping this random girl we've never seen or heard of before and saying, I found this girl who you've never seen or heard of before and I really liked her. She was in fact the perfect girl for me, but then I met her kid. I said it didn't bother me, but truthfully it did. I promised him I'd make it to a baseball game he had, but I bailed and never called. This is, I think, the end of the video, but thank you for watching, and do comment on what your thoughts of Community are. My main ships for Community, Jeff and Shirley, as I've probably made clear, or Jeff and Britta, one of the two. Definitely not Jeff and Annie. Annie and Abed and Troy. I'm thinking Trobedney, whole thing. Polyamorous Annie and Abed and Troy. Thank you for watching. Be safe, stay hydrated, wear mask over nose and mouth and chin, and be happy. Take a warm bath. Do something for you. Love you guys.